Folks, I can't believe this is real life, but here we go again. At 2:30 a.m., a federal activist judge by the name of, I kid you not, Sparkle Sooknanan halted a repatriation flight full of illegal alien unaccompanied minors from Guatemala from being returned to Guatemala at the request of the Guatemalan government to be reunited with their parents in Guatemala. Judge Sparkle cited child safety and due process in this emergency order, so I have to ask the question, do Democrats want anybody to be deported? Folks, I can't believe this is real life, but here we go again. At 2:30 a.m., a federal activist judge by the name of, I kid you not, Sparkle Sooknanan halted a repatriation flight full of illegal alien unaccompanied minors from Guatemala from being returned to Guatemala at the request of the Guatemalan government to be reunited with their parents in Guatemala. Judge Sparkle cited child safety and due process in this emergency order as her reasoning for halting the flight just before takeoff. Forgive me, Sparkle, but these children, these minors, came into our country alone from Guatemala, effectively orphaned in a foreign country. And you think keeping them here in a foreign country, away from their parents in their home country, is about their welfare? First, this is another case of judicial overreach. The executive branch, meaning President Trump, has the authority to enforce immigration law. Blocking a lawful deportation at the last minute, especially one requested by the child's home country, is BS. Second, it undermines border enforcement. When courts send the message that even deportations involving coordination with foreign governments can be stopped by legal challenges, it reinforces the idea that illegal entry leads to indefinite stays, a major pull factor in illegal immigration and ultimately what the Democrats want. Third, this situation risks incentivizing more dangerous child smuggling. If minors can't be quickly and lawfully returned, families and traffickers see it as a green light to keep sending kids alone across that border. Also, who's in control of our border policy? Our elected government or unelected judges like Ms. Sparkle? Bottom line, American libs want illegal aliens to stay here. All of them. Gangbangers, the unaccompanied orphans, the traffickers, the wife beaters, all of them. Is there a single illegal alien they are in favor of deporting? Let me ask my guest today on this Liberal Tuesday. Join me now to state her case is Democratic strategist Morgan Harper. Morgan, it's great to see you, so I have to ask the question. Do Democrats want anybody to be deported?
I think there's a lot of alignment around the fact that we shouldn't want people to be immigrating to the U.S. who have broken laws, are engaging in illegal activity while they're in the United States, crimes against people, especially when it comes to harming other safety. I don't meet a lot of Democrats who oppose that or question that. I think where we have a lot of a lack of alignment is around the tactics that are being used right now to go after a lot of the people who have entered the country and are currently here in the U.S., many of whom it has been proven through research that's happened have not broken any laws. And I also want to just push back on something you said about, the specific example you mentioned with the children. Is a lot of the children that are in this group that the Judge Sooknanan has now halted the deportations don't have any parent, that their parents have been deceased, or it's not clear who their caregivers or providers would be, should they go back. And so I think we have to look a lot here on the precedent. I mean, what judges are responsible for is making sure that laws are upheld and being abided by through the enforcement that's happening in the administration. And if laws are being violated by that enforcement, then that's their duty to intervene. And that's what we've seen here. And it's not a permanent intervention. It's a temporary restraining order so the judge can gather more information and then make a final conclusion. There's very little disagreement that we need to do something about our immigration system. There's very little disagreement that we shouldn't have people in the country who have immigrated that are violating laws. But there's a lot of uncertainty about who exactly is being swept up in this administration's immigration policy and making sure that the laws are being followed. And P.S., if we want to actually do something to prevent all the wasting of resources that goes into these one-off enforcement actions, well, Republicans have control of both the administration and the U.S. Congress in the Senate and the House, and can put up legislation that would change our immigration policy, improve that, and prevent all this downstream intervention that ends up risking safety and also the rule of law.
Yeah. So I want to dig in a lot there. So I guess I'm a little confused by this. You've got Guatemalan children who came to this country illegally, unaccompanied. And then you're more concerned that if they go back to their home country, that perhaps they don't have anybody there in their home country to take care of them. I guess that whole notion is just a bit confusing to me. This is not their home country. So why would they be better suited to stay here, not with their parents and not in their home country? They're effectively orphans here. Why would that be better for them and more lawful for them to stay in a foreign nation rather than being returned to their home country when they came to this country by themselves illegally? That's something that you're kind of losing me on there.
Well, a couple of things I would say there is, one, I mean, we have laws and we have procedures, and children are not just making decisions on their own and having things happen to them. There are adults that are involved that are making decisions that then often children are dealing with the ramifications of. And so, especially because children are vulnerable in that way, we want to make sure that we have laws in place in this country that are protecting children, regardless of the circumstances that have brought them here. I think we can all agree on that we want to protect children and we want to make sure that children are safe.
It's confusing to me, though, why you'd think that kids that came across the border by themselves are safer just being in the hands of any Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Well, that's where I haven't gotten to my second question. So my second point is, we don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I have not looked into the backgrounds of all of these children. Like I said, the judge has issued a temporary pause here to gather more information to be able to look into what the circumstances are with each of these children. I'm guessing you haven't had time to look into all of that. Neither of us is in a court of law to be able to dig in. And there are examples that have been mentioned in some of the reporting that's happened on this, that some of these children, we don't even know what their custody situation is, where they should be turning, where they're not. It could very well be likely that they have a situation or more family members here than other places. No idea. But here's the major point. The major point is that we all want our immigration laws to be followed. We want all of our laws to be followed. And if we want to do something to make sure that we don't have to spend a lot of our time getting into this back and forth of individual children's circumstances or not, who are coming from other countries, adults that are in other countries, then we just need the administration and this Congress to pass immigration reform and save us all a ton of time. And that is fully within control to do that right now.
So whenever I agree with you. We need legislation, because if you guys happen to get a president in office, I don't want them to open up the border again. So I want legislation to codify this. But I would say, to your point about if we want to avoid this mess altogether, we lock down that frickin' border so tight that no one can get through. And then we don't have to deal with it. Then we don't have millions of people here that we have to round up and send back to their home country. So for me, it's like, if you want to prevent the headache, you just enforce the border, which is exactly what this president is doing, absent legislation. I wish Congress would do more too, but unfortunately, even when Democrats are given an opportunity to sign like the Lake and Riley Act, it's like, let's keep, the people in this country who are and, targeting vulnerable women, let's pass an act to get them the heck out of here. Democrats are like, yeah, no, that's a bridge too far for me. So I wish Congress would do more. Democrats don't have the appetite to, and quite frankly, a lot of Republicans don't have the balls to. So for right now, I think the best option is just seal the border.
Well, on that theme, there we are in firm agreement that there's a lot of cojones lacking in Washington, D.C. within Republicans in the U.S. Congress. But that's where I'm a little confused, because who are they listening to? I mean, it appears that they are all listening to the president, which I'm sure you're good with, right? But if that's the case, then why wouldn't the president make this a priority? Just like with the big, beautiful bill, make it a priority that, like, I'm done with the border. I'm done with dealing with these immigration issues. I'm done having to fight these one-off judges and deal with their decisions that are countering what's happening in the administration. We are going to just pass a law. Congress, do it now, or else I'm primarying all of you. Yeah. Right?
No, I don't disagree with you. And let's also keep in mind, we're about 9 months into the administration. I do believe that will come. For the time being, what he's focusing on is, let's seal the border down, which he has effectively done. And also, let's do mass deportations, which he's also working on. And yes, these judges are getting very annoying with their constant injunctions and emergency orders and all of that. But I would argue that despite all that, this administration is still incredibly effective. There's something else that you said, though, that again, I have to push back on. You said that pretty much everybody is in agreement that people that come here that break our laws, that are not upstanding members of the society, that they should be sent back. Well, then you got to explain to me why you still got all your Democrats crying over Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You know, whether you want to admit he's a gang member or not, facts are he's an illegal alien, one, and two, at least if you want to take everything else out of it, we at least know that he's a wife beater because his wife filed not one but two protective orders against him. So I don't know what Democrats estimate a upstanding member of society to be, but even absent everything else, someone who came to our country illegally and has protective orders from a spouse against him, I would argue that's not the kind of Americans that we want here. But maybe you see it differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of back and forth on what exactly he has and hasn't done. But like I
You
said,
don't think
I mean,
he's beat his wife? You don't agree with that? That she was scared? That she filed those orders and said, "I'm scared to be near him"? You don't think that she was making that up?
I do not at all question what she said or what she filed in any way. But here's the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is that, again, it's actually very similar to what we were just talking about. We can go back and forth on these individual people. If they're people that have broken the law, then most Democrats I talk to agree they should not, and immigrants that have come to the country that are breaking the law should not be allowed to stay here if they do not already have citizenship and are protected in that way. People who have entered the country and are not documented, all of these things. But the vast majority of people who are here are not in that category.
But what about Kilmar Abrego Garcia?
Some dispute. Sorry,
so,
I can just finish.
Yeah,
There's some dispute about what exactly Mr. Garcia has done.
Yeah, but
sorry, if I could just finish this last point, and then I'll go back, if that's okay. And the risk is that we have no precedent, that it is always a one-off determination, and then there's no predictability, and that is a lawless society, and none of us want that. Is a true lawlessness.
The predictability should be if you're in this country illegally, you are subject to deportation. This whole notion that it's like, well, you know, we got to wait and see if you do something else. No.
We have had a completely dysfunctional immigration system.
Correct, but that doesn't mean you get to stay.
Right now for Republicans to solve it. And
we are solving it.
Hear in your response why the president isn't doing that. You said it's going to come in months. Why? Why is it taking 9 months?
Listen,
do it now.
We need to do it as quickly as possible. But we also
they aren't doing it as quickly as possible. And that's what makes people lose a lot of trust on the Democratic side. If you really cared about doing it as quickly as possible, you would do it as quickly.
You think Democrats would get behind that?
To strike these deals
Democrats would get behind that,
to drop lawsuits that are against them that would bring millions of dollars back to Americans. They are moving quickly to cut deals, to drop these types of court cases that would have blocked Hewlett Packard, for example. Their merger was supposed to be blocked. They cut a deal, it goes away. And that is going to harm and increase prices for Americans. That is all happening very quickly.
I love
what
talking
isn't
about
happening
Hewlett
is immigration
Packard,
reform that could happen
Kilmar
any
Abrego
moment.
Garcia, not Hewlett Packard.
Sorry?
I'm not talking about Hewlett Packard. I'm talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
But that's the thing, is that we should be, because why did Americans elect President Donald Trump? They elected President Donald Trump for a few reasons. I agree, immigration is one of them. But then also, more importantly, is to lower prices. And if we continue to let large corporations do whatever they want in this country, to run ramshot over the rule of law, to allow their mergers to be passed through with no problem, that will continue to raise prices on the American people. And that is exactly what we do not need, as we now hear from McDonald's that people can't even afford McDonald's with how much prices are going up right now. These are the issues that need to be focused on. If we want to solve immigration, let's do it. I don't think we need to wait another 9 months.
Okay. Well, that's a separate issue. But again, I was talking about immigration, and you said we need, a comprehensive immigration reform. It sounds great. I hope we get it done, right? I don't have a ton of faith in Congress. You and I both agreed. I wish that Republicans had the appetite. And if you think that President Trump's not pushing hard on immigration, I mean, I've never seen someone push harder on illegal immigration in my 33 years on this earth than President Trump, with mass deportations and securing the border, and also using every resource at his disposal to fortify that border. But my question for you is this, because what you said to me is that Democrats are in favor of removing those who are committing crimes or are not good people. But I asked you about Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Committing crimes. I think not good people is totally subjective.
So
I don't know what that means. Are we good people? I don't know. But committing crimes is a line that every Democrat I talk to is in agreement on. Yes.
So what's it going to take for you to believe that Kilmar Abrego Garcia shouldn't be here? Is there anything that he could do? Or are you going to be like, nope, another court case. Nope, no. We got to just follow this due process. We got the body cam footage out of my state of Tennessee. We've got the not one, but several courts saying this guy is MS-13 affiliated. You've got people in Maryland, in Prince George County, saying this guy is MS-13 affiliated. You've got 2 protective orders from his wife. You've got his wife's ex-husband saying, I don't want my kid around her new guy because he's a gang member. What more do you need to say perhaps Kilmar Abrego Garcia shouldn't be here? Is there anything?
Yeah, yes, like I said, people who are committing crimes, that makes total sense. Everyone's in agreement on that. The only thing that we are disagreeing on is then legally, and I'm sorry, I am going to continue to believe in this thing called due process because I believe in this thing called Constitution. That needs to be run. That needs to be run through a court, and then you make a decision, and then you follow what the court's saying. That's how the United States works. If we don't like it, there are other countries that don't have a constitution, that don't have the rule of law. Those are available to us. But here in the United States, this is what we do. We do the Constitution thing. We do the rule of the law thing.
So basically what's going to happen is all these illegals like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, they're going to appeal until Democrats are finally happy with due process, but they never will be. And he'll appeal and he'll be here in perpetuity forever. And that's what you guys want. So you should just admit it.
No, don't agree with that at all. And this is exactly the kind of thing that could be sorted out through legislation. How many appeals, for example, are allowed? What types of procedures are there for dealing with this population that has come into the country illegally? That's the type of thing that legislation works out. That's what brings clarity for the judges to make their decisions very fast. If they haven't gotten that guidance for Congress, then it becomes more of a gray area. Again, this is how it works. Congress passes laws.
It's just
the judges then make sure that the laws have been followed.
Well, Morgan, it's so
and if
weird
we want better laws, if we want faster laws, if we want more efficiency, like you're saying, then this is the time for Donald Trump to tell Congress, get to work and do it.
I agree with you.
All within their power.
We need to do more. I would love to have that thing like a steel trap at that border, trust me. But what I am saying is, it's so bizarre to me that the Democrat standpoint is that there is a gray area when it comes to coming to this country illegally. And I guess that's just maybe where we differ, because I think you come to this country illegally, you're subject for deportation. But Democrats see it as come to this country illegally, break our first law, and then you get to stay here, and then you oftentimes get an attorney that's paid for by an NGO or the American taxpayer, and you stay and you stay and you appeal and you appeal and you dodge and you dodge and you plea and you go on MSNBC, and then 15 years down the road after you've had 5 kids here, then we're still dealing with you. And I guess that's just where we differ.
Anyone who comes into the country and they have entered the country illegally is subject to deportation. Like, that is always a possibility when you come. Now, whether or not everyone is caught and then goes through a deportation process, that's different. But here's the other thing I would note, and look, I know that we are not going to see eye to eye on everything that we're discussing right now, which is why you have me on the show. But here's the genuine question I have for you, though, is we essentially have allowed our economy to run off of a lot of the labor that is coming from this wink, wink, nod, nod. We're not going to have a functional immigration system, and we're going to have a lot of people in this country who are not protected, and then therefore will be able to be paid less, right? So let's look at just one aspect of the economy like that. Agriculture. We're now hearing from these large agricultural companies that, by the way, have pushed out a lot of the family farms that used to run and control and grow a lot of our food, that they can't work like this, that they won't be able to run their businesses if they don't have access to this labor pool.
Yeah.
And so that is going to, and I'm not saying that that's right. In fact, there's a ton wrong with that. Like I just said, it killed a lot of the family farms in the United States. But if that's the circumstance they're dealing with right now, and then they're going to have to see increase in their supply prices, and then that's going to be passed on to the U.S. consumer. It's like we are dealing with a bit of a sticky situation here. And again, coming back to the pricing issue. So that I don't know what kinds of discussions are happening, on the Republican side there, but I'd be interested in your thoughts, because there's no game plan. And so that's where I do think it would be better to have an actual legislative process that creates some of the laws that then will be able to target specific industries that have been really nasty and taking advantage of this lack of clarity in immigration, harming a lot of people, exploiting people to the detriment of U.S. workers and family farmers.
I agree with you on that. No serf class labor in this country. I don't really feel for these major corporations that rely on serf class illegal alien labor. And I think if they would pay people a decent, honest wage, they would get more Americans that'd be willing to do those jobs. I come from an agriculture state. We have very few illegal aliens in my home state of South Dakota that do agriculture work, so I know it can be done. A lot of those are family farms and ranches, to your point. So that's a point of agreement that you and I have. I only have 10 minutes left with you. We could talk about immigration the whole time, but I do want to move to the other kind of big topic, probably of the, I guess, this new month, it will be again, is crime. And we only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep our answers concise so I can get to a lot. Now, my question for you is this. A lot of people discussing right now, Labor Day weekend, Chicago, at least 7 people dead, nearly 60 people shot. The governor says we don't want Trump here. The mayor says we don't want Trump here. And also, we don't want federal funding to have more police officers here. It would seem to me that they need help. So my question for you is, do you think Democrats, particularly in Illinois and Chicago, are getting the messaging correct on crime?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's interesting. I didn't expect you to go, are they getting the messaging correct? I mean, I'm less concerned with the messaging and more that they're just addressing crime.
Yeah, no,
right?
I'm more concerned with that too, but I'm just wondering from your perspective, if you think that they are doing an adequate job of making people feel safe and secure in their city and state.
Yeah, I mean, look, overall, crime rates have been declining. Violent crime rates have been declining nationwide, including in cities like Chicago, including cities like Columbus, where I live. And so that's important for people to know. In terms of any homicide happening, though, I think we would all, and I know I would love to live in a city, in a place where there are no homicides happening. And so making sure that we're prioritizing people's safety and letting people know that that is a concern, I think should be something that every Democrat is thinking about, talking about. I think the issue with the National Guard and the refusing of federal funding is, it's not clear that these are the things that are going to get us to like the zero homicide rate. I mean, it's actually, there is research that shows, for example, that cutting things like Medicaid tend to see then an uptick in crime after, because people are more vulnerable. You laugh, but this is research. These are real studies. I'm not making this up.
I'm going to tell you this as somebody who doesn't want to see the Democrat Party completely implode, because I think we need a functional two-party system. When you say things like, I know we've got at least 52 people shot, 7 dead in Chicago over the Labor Day weekend. And you say, but you know what? Not necessarily sending in reinforcements or more police officers, that isn't going to solve it, but like Medicaid is what it is. The Democrats, you guys are going to get clobbered. You're going to get beat over the head in every election moving forward if you try to convince people, hey, guess what? Crime's at a 30-year low. Never mind the fact that you had all these shootings over the weekend. People don't feel safe, right?
Okay, so again, let's get to what Republicans want to do.
Yeah,
okay.
What I want to do.
Are you guys going to do anything to take guns off the street? These are gun-related homicides. Are you doing anything on that? Are you doing anything to make sure that people have jobs that are paying them more?
You don't think that they're getting guns off the street? You don't think that, especially in DC, I'll use that example. Have you been paying attention to the numbers of the illegal guns that they've taken off the streets of DC with the crime crackdown? Yeah, it's been pretty exponential. So, no, I don't believe in taking people's guns away who have a constitutional right to have a firearm, but I do believe in getting
someone who has the record of having committed crimes, that they're going to have easy access to more weapons. You think that's totally fine?
No, because you can't buy a firearm if you are a felon. Felons can't.
When people are only officially buying firearms, that's the people who commit crimes. I doubt it.
No, there's a lot of illegal guns on the street, which is why more law enforcement. Yeah, exactly. Getting the illegal guns off the street is a top priority, not only for President Trump, but for law enforcement in general. So I'm not really seeing your point there. What I'm saying is, when I know you guys don't want the National Guard to come in, although it's been incredibly effective in D.C., and your own mayor in D.C. who's a Democrat, I say yours, a Democrat, is actually conceding it's better here now. You guys don't want the National Guard. You don't want that help. Well, she said it, not me. You can go back and look at Mayor Bowser. I don't have the. You haven't heard Mayor Bowser say that things have been better in D.C. and she appreciates the help? Go find the clip. I wish I had it. I only have 6 minutes left with you, but I promise you she did. And she's given a lot of credit to President Trump, which I thought was astonishing and a great step forward in the partnership, which is, I guess, really what my question goes to is this. I get that Pritzker wants to run for president, and I get that Mayor Brandon Johnson is a moron, but I'm really confused here why they would also not only just say we don't want the National Guard, but Mayor Brandon Johnson would say, I don't even want more federal funding for more law enforcement. What mayor that has a crime problem like Chicago would refuse federal funding to increase law enforcement presence on his streets? How does that make sense?
Can't speak for Brandon Johnson. Don't know exactly what's going on with his messaging or what he's getting at there. But here's what I will say. I'll say that I'm guessing he would take additional funding to support all sorts of things, including police, that would help to make our communities safer.
We ain't doing this cockamamie stuff anymore where things are going to the more training, mental health, social justice workers. No. Police.
What?
Police with handcuffs, not with poems, not with watercolors, with handcuffs.
We're talking about that. We're talking about food and healthcare and safety. Yeah, all of those things are the core building blocks of what makes Americans safe and our communities good. And two of those three things, there's zero funding for. It's all been cuts. The one that is on the table, apparently, although I don't know that I saw increase for ICE funding. I'm not sure about increase for the local police funding departments across the board in the reconciliation bill. Saw an increase for ICE funding, but let's increase funding for all of those things that make communities safe. We want to have safe streets. Police play a role in that. We want to make sure people have enough to eat. We want to make sure that they have access to mental health care. That is a lot of the connection to crime too, is that people are running around the streets of America with no mental health care, and they also have access to weapons, and they're doing whatever they want. That's what makes a lot of places in the U.S. unsafe. Let's address it all.
I agree with you. Let's address it all. But do you think that's a problem in the south side of Chicago? Do you think it's because they have mental health concerns and they don't have enough food?
I think it's a combination of all of these things all over the U.S., not just in Chicago, everywhere.
Yeah. But where these high crime areas where people are getting shot and there's drive-bys and there's a lot of gang activity, I agree that, going back to the family and upbringing, I believe that has a lot to do with it. I think fatherlessness is a huge problem. I don't see the left really wanting to address that. But
not just. Well, I don't know what you mean by the family upbringing. I'm talking about current mental health issues, just like the kind that led to somebody to go into that Catholic school in Minnesota and shoot people up in the middle of the day, children.
Yeah.
These are all this very similar kind of issues. We need to be honest about the fact that we have mental health issues everywhere, in every community across America. And instead of doing something to address that, I would be the first to support a bill that's just attacking that. We are instead taking resources away from the healthcare that includes mental health care that would prevent a lot of these disasters, including individual crimes in cities like Chicago, from happening every day.
So do you believe in people who have, mental health issues, drugs, drug crime issues? Do you believe in them being, maybe involuntarily committed to get treatment if they're repeat offenders committing crimes? Do you think that would be something that could possibly save their lives and others?
I think we need to take really strong measures to look at how precarious people are. A lot of people are who live in the streets. A lot of our homeless, a lot of the mental health. I mean, we've seen all of these incidents play out. And a lot of them, I'm sure you've debated, like the New York subway incident. There was just like clearly someone that had big mental health issues. It's not just in big cities. It's in rural areas too. It's in middle tier cities like Columbus, where I live. And so let's just get it done. I mean, why not just get it done? And what we know is not going to make the problem any better is taking away funding that is like the lifeline that people have to access healthcare, inventing work requirements for them to get access to healthcare. It's all a waste of time. It's just going to make us less safe. It's just going to get more of our kids. And I don't want to sit by and let that happen anymore. We're probably, I think I'm a little bit older than you, but it's been my entire lifetime since I was a teenager in high school that we have been living with these effing shootings that children out of nowhere. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. And whether it's on the south side of Chicago or if it's in a rural town in Colorado, I care as much about doing something to solve that. And we can. And right now, I wish it weren't the case necessarily with the party politics thing. But right now, the reality is Republicans have full control over the United States government to get it done. So let's solve it. Let's get it done. Let's not continue to punish people and make people less safe. It's a waste of time and it's hurting us all.
Okay. Well, I wish there was more that we could discuss. I know that you've got to get going. I do hope we can continue the conversation one of these Tuesdays soon because I have a lot more to discuss with you. But I always appreciate your perspective. You know, we're very passionate, and I always appreciate your time and your dialogue and your debate with me. I always have a good time doing it. So thank you so much, Morgan, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Talk soon.
All right, folks. Gavin Newsom is copying President Trump's crime crackdown and has zero realization this was Trump's ask all along. It's time for final thoughts.
We've received additional requests in other parts of the state, and that's what we wanted to highlight here today, that we're going to be expanding this operation, building on the success that is now included over 9,000 arrests statewide. A effort that will now take shape on border division down in San Diego. We're going to advance this effort down in LA to other parts of the Central Valley, not just limited to Bakersfield, in partnership with Mayor Go there in San Bernardino. And we're going to expand this operation in a collaborative that continues to include the cities and counties, our partners in the sheriff's office and local law enforcement agencies.
Well, looky there. California podcaster and sometimes Governor Gavin Newsom is doing something on his own to ramp up law enforcement presence throughout the state. And you know what, Gavi? It's a good start. I'm so glad you came up with this all on your own. Oh, wait. The timing of this seems to coincide with President Trump's D.C. crime crackdown and promise to bring law and order nationwide. But you know what? I'm not mad at it. They say if you want to convince a narcissist to do something, you got to make them think it was their idea. And that's precisely what President Trump did to old Governor Hairgel over there. More law enforcement officers flooding the zone is always a good thing. But what remains to be seen is if the arrests they carry out will result in anything. So I guess one of my follow-ups for Gavin, or perhaps the nerds who run his social media, is if you're indeed serious about breaking the California culture of lawlessness, why did you oppose the Prop 36 ballot measure that, despite your opposition, was overwhelmingly passed by California voters and sought to increase penalties, like actually apply some, to drug and theft offenders, as well as allow for judges to mandate treatment for some offenders? And another question for Gavi Poo. As governor, why have you failed to fund this voter-approved and mandated initiative? You know, it passed with over 68% of the vote in your very blue state, and yet you refuse to fully fund it, saying basically it's too expensive, and you already ran up a budget deficit due in large part to your funding of illegal alien health care. So yeah, forgive me for not buying your Trump copycat suppression team BS, because it's all smoke and mirrors, just like you, Gavin. Those are my final thoughts. Tune in tomorrow live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Catch full episodes on Fox Nation and Outkick. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. For more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Just click right here so you never miss a beat. I will be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.